So the first thing that we're going to do is, Julia wants to make a panda. So she cut a corner of clay off. Your panda or your animal, whatever it is, needs to be 8 inches in one direction. So because this is a corner, you're going to think about the basic proportions of the animal, and you're going to make a solid animal. So I'm going to take the top of it and kind of round it up like this. And I'm just thinking about the proportions and the way that the animal, do you want the animal to be sitting? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just thinking about the way that this animal would be, like how big its legs are in comparison to its body. Okay, so basic forming of the animal. It's good if you can get a picture or use your phone so that you can have reference, because I don't look at pandas all the time, you know, so the proportions might be something that, so you're just gonna pull things out of it. You're not gonna add feet, you're not gonna add legs and things like this. You're just gonna pull the basic features, the basic shapes of the animal as you're working, and you're going to continue to work and continue to mold and shift the clay. That's really basically what you're doing, is shifting the clay. A good idea though when you're working with an animal is to, especially because you're not going to be making a mold, is to have the animal maybe turning its head or twisting its body, because the gestural movement gives it a little bit more of a lifelike feeling to it. So you would start, you know, you can maybe, think about where the ears are going to be, where the nose is going to be, how big the hands are. Maybe it could be holding a piece of bamboo. Then you might come in and say, okay, now it's a little bit too big around here, so you might have to remove some clay. So you might have to kind of pull it off or take a tool and shift it. But the most important thing when you start is that you get the basic proportions of the animal that you're doing. So like on the dog, the legs were way too thick, so I took a tool and I kind of carved and looked at the muscles of the dog, and looked at the way the haunches went around and the shape of the legs. So after I got the basic proportions, the head to the body to the legs, I went in and carved and made and manipulated into a little bit more detail. Then when you get to this point, okay, even before you do the eyes, which is in the next video, what you need to do is you need to cut it in half and you need to hollow it. So I'm gonna take this wire tool just like this to demonstrate this on Dylan's little project. So if you could, well, I'm just gonna go ahead. So I'm just gonna take the wire tool. Dylan's kind of freaking out. I'm going to take the wire tool from the back to the front. And it's good if someone can help you. Can you hold that right there? Really tight. Then I'm going to take it and kind of cross the wire like this. Okay, so that I cut the animal right in half, and you can see the large air pockets. Can I use your tool right there? Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're going to draw a line for how thick you want the edges to be, and you're going to come into your animal and you're going to hollow the whole thing out like this, so that the entire animal is the same thickness, and I would say no bigger than 1/4 of an inch everywhere. And if you do go through all the way through to the end, just take some wet clay and stick it in there and mold it from the inside out, okay? But you can see, look at the big air pocket. That would have blown up in the kiln if we didn't do this. So you're going to come in. A good way to do it is to hold it in your hand, because then you can kind of feel how deep you can go. And if you do it when it's too dry, it might crack. So you need to make sure it's just at that perfect leather hard state. Then once you get both pieces hollowed out, okay, you're just going to score them and slip them back together, and then blend them and add your details, your eyes, your texture, and things like that. But really, really important, I trapped air in here, so I need to make sure that there's a hole somewhere in the sculpture for that air, that gas to escape when it's in the kiln. Because you remember that air expands when it gets hot, and this will blow up if we trap air in it. Okay, so that would be the hollowing technique. Okay, and then the next video we'll talk about the eyes.